Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
This is Ed Cohen in San Diego, and today is 3 December 21. I think the world is accelerating, spinning faster than ever before. What do you think? Time is just fleeting by, but it's okay. I can't wait for 22 and happier times, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So here we are. That was Lynn Schmidt, and she's in Boise, Idaho, and she's just published her 6th book. And I'm going to ask her to hold up all the books, but we're going to really focus on the new one. And also with us is Stephen Howard in Mexico City. Hello, Stephen, again.
Good day, Ed. Hello, Lynn. Good to see you again.
You too.
So, Lynn, hold up that book and let's begin talking about sexism. And this is called Anti-Sexist. Okay, now this is obviously a woman's view of things. And that's probably how it should be, right?
No, no. There we go. Correct him.
Actually, I've got several male contributors to the book as well, and a lot of the folks whose research I've used to talk about the action planning part, which is the challenge sexism, champion women's rights, and create equality. There's quite a few men out there that are involved more on the abuse and violence side of things, but that are leading initiatives to educate and train men on how to do better, be better. So I'm using a lot of their work is in the book as well. So it couldn't be successful as simply a female perspective, I don't think.
So let's get right to the bottom line here on this. Of all the people who've quit jobs, a large number of women, but they're not quitting, they're just quitting the boss they had, right?
Well,
Maybe.
First, I would say no. I'm not a big believer that people leave because of their bosses. I think leadership training is $1 billion business, and so it's easy to pin it on the boss because you can train bosses. You can't change necessarily the organizational systems as easily as train a boss. Women right now are out of companies, businesses, out of work because of what happened with the pandemic, and because in particular, other countries as well, but in particular in the United States, there's no support system for women. Childcare isn't paid for, healthcare isn't paid for. So women had to leave the workforce and stay at home to do those things. And so while men are back in the workforce in the numbers that they were, women still are not back in the workforce. And it has nothing to do with bosses. It has to do with the policies and practices and systems we have in this country that don't support women.
So we're not going to get into politics, although that's a driving force behind all this. So the concept here is how to prevent aggression against women, mental or physical, right?
I guess it depends on how you define aggression. It starts with microaggressions, which are really the things we say, the jokes we make. So those are, I guess you could say, verbal aggressions. And while they're called micro, in my mind, they're big. So there's a lot of words we use, just like bossy or aggressive or a working woman or a woman engineer. I mean, things that have become normalized. So it starts there, and then it works its way to discrimination and harassment, and then actually the abuse and violence.
So I asked Stephen to join us because he originally introduced me to you a few months ago. And second of all, Stephen has come up with this brainstorm, and I've been fortunate to be co-host, called Thrive and Strive, Thrive XL and Strive XL. And we were just discussing before you came on. So what category would this fit into, Thrive or Strive? Well, it's both, isn't it? because of striving to do better and to be more complete and to be more wonderful society, and just striving to get a better life. And thriving has to do well-being internally in the workplace. Is that right, Stephen?
Yeah, and that's why we want to talk to Lynn, because thriving is about creating workplace wellness, and that a huge component of that is psychological safety, which I'm going to ask Lynn, because I hate to make presumptions, but is there a greater need for psychological safety for women in the workplace than for men, or is it pretty equal, do you think?
I would say there's a greater need for women.
Yeah.
Just simply because the things that they experience in the workplace, a lot of them have to come from men. And if you look at the power pyramid, as such, I mean, at the top of the power pyramid is white males, and then males of color, and then white women, and then women of color. So you can even separate the experiences of women of color from white women, because they actually have even, I would say, a higher level of need for psychological safety and experience greater difficulties in the workplace.
Yeah, and I some research that came out from Gallup earlier this year about burnout, and was very enlightening to me. And one of the pieces of the research showed that 42% of women are uncomfortable discussing burnout with their boss. 33% of men were not comfortable. First of all, those are too high for either categories, for either genders. I mean, you can't discuss your feelings of burnout with your boss, and there's a climate issue to talk about. But 42% of women, almost half of the women, according to research, are uncomfortable being able to talk to their boss about burnout. Why do you think that would be?
Probably a lot of the reasons for their burnout are things that you might associate or stereotypically associate with them being women. And unfortunately, once again, getting back to the lack of support. So not only are they doing, and this isn't across the board for everybody, but not only are they doing their day job, they then go home and do the work at home. And there's a lot of research now on unpaid, the amount of unpaid work that women do, and that contributes to the burnout. So I would say there's definitely a lack of comfort in talking to a boss about what's causing the burnout, because stereotypically they're going to be accused of well, you're a working woman and now you're complaining because you can't handle your home life as a woman, and on and on and on. And
you've made it feel weak, which is actually you're more strong. You're doing basically two jobs. You're more strong, but you're being made felt to be weak. Is this a Western issue, a societal issue, or is it a global issue, Lynn? I mean, I know there's going to be exceptions in some countries, and obviously some countries are very sexist, male dominated. Japan comes to mind. Most of the Middle East comes to mind. But do you see positive trends globally or in the United States, or not at all?
It's a global issue, and I actually worked very hard to make the book global. So I've got a lot of contributors with essays, and then I've also got like brief, really short stories, 150-word short stories I collected from a lot of people, and many of those are global. So the book is looking at it from a global perspective. I stayed away from being U.S.-centric. So it is a global problem. It obviously, exactly like you said, it varies by country. Some are far more sexist than others, but there's common threads. And in a recent United Nations study showed that 9 out of 10 people, men and women, have at least one deeply ingrained bias towards women worldwide. They looked at 75 countries.
Wow, it's fascinating.
Let's talk, if I can, about Mexico and Latin America. This is, of course, a multicultural region, not just one thing, but patriarchal for sure, historically. But that's not sexist, right?
It is in a way, particularly if it's like the kings and kingdoms of around the world who the male progeny gets first crack at the crown, and so in the patriarchal company. A lot of that time it does go to the first son or the second son, rather than even if there's an older daughter first, for instance, it might still as they pass generation to generation.
Yeah, just look at the royals in England.
No, exactly.
And
Princess, many other
what's her name? Anne.
Yeah.
And Harry and William. My God,
Yeah.
rivalry. Yeah.
Well, same thing in Japan. I mean, the princess stepped down
Right.
for marrying a commoner, a so-called commoner, by their standard. Let me ask, Lynn, is there any good news on this topic? Or do you see positive trends? Because I think we all know that it is a huge issue, societal, workplace issue. Are there any good trends? Are there any companies doing it right? Any countries doing it right or nearly right from your research?
From my research, I would say no.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you look at the United States statistics, we now have 41. I think it's 41 female CEOs in the Fortune 500. 10 years ago, I think it was 7 or 8. So I mean, you're seeing numbers like that, and things increase, but then you're seeing other things take steps backwards as far as women and women's rights. Mm-hmm. And so, based upon the research I've done, there's no country, and I've used a lot of the UN research as well, because they go worldwide. There is no country that they are willing to state actually has equality.
Mm-hmm. Anybody close? I mean, somebody at the 40% mark or 35% mark? Is there some silver lining?
The countries that seem to come closer are those northern European countries, mm-hmm. and then Iceland as well. They're closely associated to those. But so Iceland, Finland, Sweden, mm-hmm. Those tend to rank higher than most of the others.
Yeah. What about Thailand? Just as a quick question, if you know about that, because when I lived in Asia for 20 plus years, a lot of the businesses in Thailand are run by women, mm-hmm. And so I was just wondering if there was although there's also the huge prostitution and women's slavery aspects in Thailand too, on the other extreme. But is any research on Thailand about women having more rights?
I'm sure there is. I can't speak specifically to where Thailand falls in the rankings.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's anecdotal, but as I said, when I was there, and one of my jobs was in selling, a lot of my customers in Thailand were women, compared to Malaysia and Indonesia, which would be more male. Singapore was more male. Japan was all male, obviously. What have you got? Sorry, Ed, go ahead.
No, excuse me for coughing and hacking. I just had to get some water here. But in the news, it's December 3, the year 2021, Vice President Harris has suddenly found herself in a mess, political mess, or something mess. And a lot has to do with the women in her office fighting each other. And it's created, unfortunately for her, news about all that. So this is an issue that is divisive in life, but now it's getting to be ugly because of the political nature of things going on here in the U.S. It's so divisive anyway. What do you think about all this? And I mean, isn't it just smart to say, wait, time out? Too many people are watching this thing, and what are you guys doing in there?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'm going to say is I'm going to place the largest amount of blame with whatever we're hearing, whatever we're being told with the media. The media loves...
Right, it's magnifying.
Yeah, the media loves ugliness. So who knows what's really going on? And obviously right behind that is sexism and misogyny. She's a female woman of color who's now in a powerful position for the first time ever. And if 9 out of 10 people are sexist, either implicitly or explicitly, they're going to follow what their brain is telling them to follow. And that's power is one of those ingrained, deeply held beliefs around power and politics that women should not be in those roles. So my personal belief is things, I mean, talking about women infighting in an office, really? I mean, it's like talking about her buying a cookware for $500. Really? I mean, they want us in the kitchen, but we can't buy $500 cookware. So it's in my mind, it's sexism, and it's extreme, and it's things are being done to undermine her because she's a woman of color in a powerful position.
When you look at her, she's not color at all, but you know, the nitpickers are out there, that's for sure. So let's move on, if we can, into the book itself. Could you hold up that book cover again, and let's look at the taglines. A little hard to read from this angle. What is the tagline? Challenge
Sexism, champion women's rights, and create equality. And so that subtitle is actually at the end of each chapter. There is an action plan that gets to how do you challenge sexism. So there's a chapter on microaggressions, which is where I believe it all starts. And so that's the words we say, the things that have become normalized. The woman's bossy. She's a woman engineer. There are things that we take for granted that we say, run like a girl. There's lots of things I could get into here, but jokes we tell, locker room chatter, whatever you want to say. And so that chapter on microaggressions, and all of my chapters that I've written, are going to end with an action planning process with suggestions and tips. Okay, in this area of the words we use, the jokes we tell, how can you challenge sexism? How can you challenge that type of sexism? How can you champion women's rights? And how does that lead to equality? So the subtitle is actually also the action planning process for each section of the book, and the different types of sexism and misogyny that I talk about.
From a workplace perspective, or from a societal perspective, or both?
It gets the action plan is really individual. It's what can you do?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, what can you do to impact these things? So when I talk about microaggressions, obviously I talk about them on a large, broad perspective with examples of what that looks like. And then it's okay, what can you do to challenge sexism, to champion women's rights that creates equality?
Nice.
So let's talk about Boise, Idaho. Beautiful place. Although I've never been there, I've seen pictures and know people, especially in Micron, and I understand you have a background there also. But it's also home of sexist guys everywhere, but particularly, and I'm not casting doubt or anything about anything, but it's just stereotypical of me sitting here in southernmost Southern California, looking up there into the woods. Well, that's conservative in spades. So what are you doing there? No, but how are you enjoying life there, and how does that fit in, or does it crystallize your views? I mean, how are you using all of this?
Yeah, and I think both of you can probably relate when you dive into a topic. And I've been focused on this topic. I returned to get my PhD mid-career, and my dissertation was on women and career derailment. So I've been focused on this topic for a number of years. And when you start to really deep dive into something, it's kind of like when you buy a type of car you've never had. So you decide to buy an Audi, you've never had an Audi, and all of a sudden you see Audis everywhere. Same kind of thing. So
now you see
I wake up each morning, I'm perusing social media, and I'm like, well, it's not where is something to talk about today about sexism. It's which one of the many, many, many things that just happened in 24 hours do I pick to talk about that's related to sexism? And in Idaho, I mean, occasionally I pick something that's Idaho, but there's things nationwide. I mean, look at New York City, supposedly a liberal city, and what happened there with I won't get into politics, but what happened there, right? So, so in Idaho, I mean, one of the recent things here is we have a professor at one of our big universities who went to a conservative conference and literally said multiple things. Women should stay at home and have babies. But one thing he said that really is I say discriminatory, is that women should not be in professions like engineering, medicine, and law. So obviously there's a lot going on right now about that. And there's all sorts of debate, First Amendment rights, this sort of thing. But he works at a university that wants women to come and be engineers and lawyers and doctors. So yeah, Idaho has a number of things that go on in regards to this. But like I said, every morning I wake up and I just do a quick glance at what's happening in the world. And it's not, wow, I need something to talk about. Where's one thing? It's what one do I pick out of the multitude that I find about sexism every single day. So
Is it something we can fix as adults, do you think, Lynn? Or is it something we need to, fix that adults talking to adults is what I wanted to say, or is it really, do we need to just leapfrog this stuff and get into the third graders and the second graders and the first graders and start there?
I think it needs, I think we can all do something about it. I definitely think it has to start early. And even when you have parents who maybe with their children up to, before they go into school are really good about staying away from pink and blue and trucks and dolls and boys don't cry and girls do this and whatever. Once they hit school and there's that peer pressure, it gets so difficult. And then once again, the media and the movies and all the things that's out there. So yeah, it needs to start early. As adults now, and that's one thing my book focuses on with its action planning is there's things we can do. You hear something that's sexist, call it out. And certainly there's ways to call it out. But call it out, say something about it. And it gets worse, obviously, as that system that I talk about, from microaggressions to discrimination to harassment and then to violence and abuse. Because my belief is if things aren't called out early, that's when people, primarily men, when it gets to the violence and abuse, that's when they feel it's okay. It's acceptable in society to feel that women are less than, and then for some of them, the behavior escalates. And if it's not dealt with early, that's where we get to where we are today, with 1 in 3 women in the world have experienced sexual abuse, and 1 in 4 other forms of domestic abuse.
Wow. Amazing. Did you ever hear the story of the classroom, like third graders in the UK with the firefighters? And
I don't think so.
let me share this with you. I love
Yeah.
this. The teacher, had a class of third graders of mixed boys and girls, and asked them to draw a picture of a police officer, of a firefighter, and an astronaut. And like 97% of the children, including the girls, drew all men. Male fireman, male policeman, a male astronaut. And then she opened the door and brought in a woman firefighter, a woman police officer, and a woman astronaut. And every time I heard that story, and when I repeat that story, like Ed just clapped, it's like, boy, it just opens up people's eyes. And it's that bias that we bring to the children on the playground, in the classroom, in the books. If you look at children's books, firefighters are men and police officers are kind of mixed, but I don't think they'd be women of color. If there's a woman police officer, she's probably a white woman in most of the children's books these days. And it starts there, is my belief.
Yeah.
So I just want to see if you also believe that.
Oh yeah, I think the earlier we can start, the better. And role models are so important. And the more of those that we can have, the better as well.
So the book's coming out on a special day next year. Is that correct?
Yeah, International Women's Day, March 8th, 2022. Yep, worked out perfectly.
That's
So
nice.
How long did it take you to write this book? I mean, you had the thoughts in your brain forever, but actually, okay, let's just say going back a couple of years now, on October 15, I'm clearing the decks. I'm going to start doing something. How long until about now it was this process?
About a couple years. I started formulating it, and actually COVID slowed me down, and I'm glad. I'm glad because I actually started formulating this book in one way, and I did a lot of surveys and interviews of women, and it's helpful data for the book because I asked them to rank, order, and pick out which behaviors on the job that were sexist really got in their way and held them back. And I really started it more with on the job, helping women, solely women focus. And over the couple of years, as I really got deep into it, it broadened, and then it broadened to anti-sexist, as I really felt like it needs to be a book for both women and men, that they'd be willing to read it. We need to make change. We've got to address it more broadly than only the workplace. And then that's where I really started studying and came up with my kind of 4-box model of microaggressions, harassment, violence and abuse, those different things. And then I started collecting the essays. Once I went a little bit broader, I wanted to collect essays that kind of fit each of those different areas. And then I started collecting originally only essays from women. And then I was like, well, I'm going broad with this. I want essays from men and commentary from men as well. And so that's when I broadened my research and got essays from men, including Stephen, but I also started following and researching and studying what some of the male leaders out there who are teaching and educating men on how to behave differently, what they're saying. And then I also I realized I need to talk about intersectionality. I need to talk about sexism intersects with things like racism for women and ableism and ageism. And so I also wanted some essays related to that. And so my gathering of essays spread out over a longer period of time, as well as I really honed in and got essays related to these specific areas. So about over a couple of year period of time, but I'm glad that COVID slowed me down, because I think I ended up with something that I'm really very happy with. And I think it's what's needed to truly address sexism and make change.
So I have to congratulate you, because I think the idea of writing a book, although listening to Stephen so many times now talk about it, I just find it like overwhelming. So congratulations for doing this. This is number 6. So let's talk about this concept here. And I can't think of anybody better than you at this moment about this thing called imposter syndrome. So especially with regard to this book title and this whole process that we've been talking about for the last 25 minutes. I can't even say the words. Are women ready to ditch this idea of imposter syndrome and just wing it, try it, fail, but keep going rather than doubt and trying to categorize it in a different way?
Yeah, so imposter syndrome is an interesting topic. My belief on imposter syndrome is that there are things in society, including sexism, ableism, racism, ageism, that in the media and the way people talk and the way people have and the experiences women have, that lead to women feeling less than, which lead to imposter syndrome. I do not believe imposter syndrome is some sort of internalized thing that women just have, that I am less than because the reason those feelings are there, they are caused by, as I said, things that are related to sexism and other things that intersect with sexism. And so, I mean, that's my belief about imposter syndrome. And yeah.
Sorry. And adjacent to that is some research has shown that, like, when there's a job or a pitch, men, again, stereotypically, a male will say, I've got 8 out of the 10 things I need, I'll apply for it. And a woman will maybe say, I've got 8 out of the 10 things, oh, I better not apply, I need all 10. And I've actually coached some women to get around that hurdle. I coached 2 women in Mexico last year who were pitching something for their creative agency. And they said, no, we're not going to go for it. I think they said we only have like 7 to 10, blah, blah. I said, go for it. Here, let's go. Here's how you leverage the 7 things that you do have, you're very good at. And, but it is something that I don't know why it happens. I wish I did. I just know the research shows that it does happen. And, but I was able to, it's something, my point is, I guess it can change, because I know, at least in this case, anecdotally with these 2 ladies, I was able to coach them in it. They got in there, they pitched it. They didn't win. They came in second, but they felt better for trying. And they didn't feel like they lost. They felt like they came second in the bid, so to speak.
Yeah.
So they can change. I think that's a key message from I suspect is from your book, is that if we take the actions that you're talking about individually, collectively, it will add up, and we'll get some small steps and then some bigger steps, and hopefully we'll see some changes.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar with negotiation. You know, I keep reading, let's teach women negotiation skills. No, the skills are easy. Getting to yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just do those things. Yeah. It's not about the skills. It's about kind of the ingrained way that women have been brought up to step back. Yeah. And there's been punishment. Women have been punished for being in multitude of ways. Poor performance reviews, research shows. Women have been punished for being assertive. Women have been punished for stepping up. And so there's all these things going on related to that, where women say, you know, should I negotiate for a higher salary? You know, does that appear, you know, while a man would do it without thinking, does that make me look aggressive, or does that make me look, you know, bossy, or does that
pushy, yeah,
pushy, yeah.
Hi, this is Ed, and I thank you for tuning in to Global TV Talk Show, a unit on globalbusinessnews.net. We broadcast to the world, as you know by now. So I wanted to make sure that you understand that our programs are advertising supported. We're grateful for co-sponsors, advertisers. They have a marketing budget, coupled with a strong desire to be associated with our top quality program. And of course, I'm grateful. Thank you. So for the next few minutes, you're going to see some commercials. It's mostly very low key, and our prices are very, very reasonable. Our exposure for the advertisers go 12 months and beyond. Some of our advertisers have been with us since March, April of 2020. And Google Analytics has tracked over 125,000 what they call audience page views, which means you looking at this page, that's a page view. Now, if you happen to go to one of our other shows, or to our radio broadcasts, or to our newspaper or magazine, those become additional page views as measured by Google Analytics. And so when they say 125,000 since spring of 2020 up through Labor Day, a month ago, that's pretty good numbers. And the past 30 days, Google Analytics has measured just under 6,000 audience page views. And that, according to them, is a 42% increase in audience participation over the month of August. So thank you very much. Well, here's our advertisers, And we'll be back in just a couple of minutes or so, and we'll proceed with this interesting conversation. Thank you.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
Hi, I'm Sergey Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we are researchers, writers and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what happened to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
You know, we could talk about this, I think, for at least another 48 hours, but we do have a limited schedule today. But let's, if I may, bring this conversation, and audience, this is not rehearsed, in case you couldn't tell. But Dr. Schmidt, would you agree that, and it's okay to say no, I don't agree with you, but that Vice President Harris should get on 60 Minutes or some other talk show and give a speech about sexism and about how the idea of how women in America should not rebel or march in the streets or wave bras or whatever, but just take charge of their life. And doesn't mean fighting against guys. It just means just demonstrating capability and on a day in, day out basis. And just the idea of almost like a fireside chat kind of a thing, but without the fireside. Just a conversation to women that men can tune in on. What do you think?
Well, I think women do need to step up more. I mean, I think we're backsliding as far as women's rights. So I think women as a whole. And once again, though, if you look at that 9 out of 10 people, and that includes women, have a bias, and over 50% of white women voted for the previous president, who was a misogynist at
heart.
At heart. You know, you run into multiple, you know, women need to do it, absolutely. But then you've also got a whole lot of women and men who don't support it. Now, should she step up and do something like that? You know, the red flags going off in my mind is how would the media crucify her if she were to step up and do something like that?
It would be controversial, but I think that, wow, it would just be so magnetic.
Yeah, she did a lot of that, I don't think necessarily fireside chats, but when she was running for office, and when she first got elected, she did quite a bit of speaking about her role and how she is the first but won't be the last, and how do you bring other women forward. So, you know, I think those are things like that I'd like to see continue and grow. Absolutely.
And I would suggest that it might work better if it was a panel. I mean, this is not a woman's issue. This is a societal issue. It should be her. It should be a governor of some state or the CEO of a large corporation. Take the CEO of United Airlines, for instance, who's got kind of a global presence. It should be, across the humanity spectrum. I don't even want to say political spectrum, the humanity spectrum of the United States, and say, look, let's talk about this. Let's talk about it. It's kind of like what Lynn did. I mean, she started a book from her perspective, if I understood her story first, and then she said, I'm going to expand this. I'm going to get other women's perspectives. Oh, you know what? I'm going to get men's perspectives in here. And I think that's one of the reasons I wish you success with the book. I think one of the reasons Lynn's book will be so powerful is it's not a solo voice out there. And therefore, as Lynn said, I think the media would tear Vice President Harris apart, be harder to tear a very diverse panel apart. To have we need we don't have a Walter Cronkite anymore, but we need Walter Cronkite to facilitate that kind of discussion between a range of society. That's my perspective on it.
Boy, that's an idea, isn't it? If we could somehow do a avatar of Walter Cronkite
with his voice.
But yeah, including men in the discussion is absolutely critical, and I've been really pleased as I've broadened my research. As I said, the men I've found out there, that their organizations focus solely on educating and training men in these areas, because men are going to listen to men. You know, I don't, if they're sexist and misogynist, the last thing they're probably going to do is listen to a woman. So
maybe. But you know, you got some strong women leader. I mean, the CEO of CVS Health is a woman.
Yeah, or General Motors, Mary Barra.
Oh yeah, there's lots. There's
very, very strong, who could share their stories and be able to show that, hey, you know what, it's okay. We can talk these things out. I'm sure CVS has a much better corporate culture with her as the head of it than others that are not as attuned to this being a major issue.
Yeah.
Okay, one more time. Hold up that book cover, please.
No problem.
All right. And can people pre-order?
Yes, it's available for pre-order right now. So it's on anywhere you get books. You'll find it: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org. You can go to your local bookstore and they may not have it in, but you can ask them, because it's my distributor is Ingram Spark, who distributes to all the bookstores worldwide. So if you have a local bookstore, indie bookstore you want to support, just go in and ask them to order it, and they can order it in.
So let's enumerate, as we close, let's enumerate the top 3 goals you have relating to this topic today.
That I would like to see happen?
Yeah.
What's anti-sexist?
Top 3.
Yeah. So my top 3 goal is, the number 1 goal I would say is that we are all sexist. And I'm happy to say I have no problem saying I'm sexist. I can be, and working on this has created an awareness. So I think my number 1 goal is that we can admit that, and we can work on becoming anti-sexist. And that means then number 2 goals is you're challenging sexism. You're doing things to challenge sexism, and you're doing things to champion women's rights. That's why I'm going to provide specific actions on what you can do. And I'm keeping this book simple. I'm not getting into all the feminist things and all of that seem to overcomplicate it and scare people away. So moving from sexist to anti-sexist is number 1. Being able to challenging sexism, and then also doing things to champion women's rights, which in the end, I believe will further gender equality.
Great. Thank you very much for being on our show again, Dr. Lynn Schmidt.
Good to see you
and Stephen, again. Would you like to sum up from your view?
I think she's nailed it on the head. I hope it's a very, very successful book. I'll do whatever I can to help promote it. I'm speaking at a Women's Day event in Monterrey, Mexico next year. So I'll certainly be telling the women there and the men in the audience about the book. But I think it's absolutely fabulous. So I wish you lots of success with it. And
thank you.
I think it's a great message. So
right.
anything we can do to support it, spread it, please let us know individually or Ed and I together. But it's a great message to get out.
So this is Dr. Lynn Schmidt in Boise, Stephen Howard in Mexico City, and I'm in southernmost Southern California, 8 miles from Tijuana. Have a good day.
Hey,
Thanks,
thank
Ed.
you.
Thanks, Lynn. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.